Hi there, welcome to Bright Hope Take 5, our weekly Sunday message compacted into fun-sized, bite-sized preaching, just 5 minutes. So we were talking a bit about defectors. The message is called Bridge of Spies. And basically, you know, we have a lot of people who leave one side to go to another side. They defect from one team to another, and all through history we find political defectors that leave one party, go to another. Lando Calrissian, great example of a defector. Carlos Tevez being welcomed to Manchester by Manchester City, you know, in many different situations, and defecting was at its biggest. It was at its crucial moment in history during the Cold War, where between the Eastern Bloc, Europe was divided, and you had the communists on one side, the capitalists on the other. Berlin was one of the points where these two empires met, and there was one bridge where a lot of spies crossed over due to being caught, you know, and rather than being killed for being traitors, they got exchanged on this bridge, which was a crossing point for these two empires. So I was talking a bit about King David. Now David, we find great part of his life, he's fleeing from his master. He was serving King Saul. He was a loyal soldier. He was a loyal general, and the king goes crazy and wants to kill him. So he has to flee for his life. And while he's fleeing for his life and living in caves, the Bible says that many people were drawn to him, were arriving at the cave, sharing his cave, and for some reason all these people just started turning up, and these people, the Bible says that they were in debt, they were in distress, they were unhappy, they were anxious. It says that these men turned into David's bodyguard. They turned into David's elite fighting force. It says that it was like an army of God that was being created there from all these people who were just fleeing terrible circumstances. And some of these men, you know, they were going because of hard times, but then there were some amazing soldiers that had been in Saul's army, and for some reason they were also defecting over to David's side, and they were leaving Saul and the army and their places of prominence and power to cross over to be with David. And we find this a couple of scriptures in 1 Samuel 22, 1-2. It talks about this cave, and it says that everyone who was in debt and everyone who was bitter in soul gathered to him, and he became commander over them. And to begin with, there were about 400 men. This is the special cave. David was going from cave to cave, and these men were following him. 1 Chronicles 12, it talks about these men who came to David at Ziklag, when he could not move freely because of Saul. Remember, Saul wanted to kill him. And they were among the mighty men who helped him in war. They were bowmen who could shoot arrows and sling stones with either the right or the left hand. They were Benjamites, Saul's kinsmen. Now that's really, really important, because these soldiers, these elite soldiers in the army of Israel, they were crossing over to be with David, but they were of the tribe of King Saul. So, you know, they weren't just anyone who's just fleeing from distress. They realized they wanted to be with David. And then it says in 1 Chronicles 12:8, from the Gadites they went over to David at the stronghold in the wilderness, mighty and experienced warriors, expert with shield and spear, whose faces were like the faces of lions, were swift as gazelles upon the mountains. It says later on in 15, these are the men who crossed the Jordan in the first month, when it was overflowing all its banks, and put to flight all those in the valleys. Now, we see several things here. We see, one, there's a very good reason to defect. Point number one, if you're going to cross over, you need to have a very good reason to do it. You know, you have to know that what's on the other side is better for me than what I'm going through here. And these men, they were in distress, they were struggling, and they realized on the other side, you know, there's life to be found with David. Now, the second thing is that you need to know that there's no going back. These soldiers, they were Benjamites. It was a massive act of treason that they were doing. They were leaving Saul to follow David. So the second point is that you know there's no going back. The third point, you have to be completely determined. It says that these men swam across the Jordan River when it was overflowing its banks. It's the worst possible time to cross a river, when it's overflowing. Now, there must have been some incredible teamwork with these guys. There must have been some incredible determination that they were willing to put their lives in risk, because they were so determined to get over, start fighting with David and start defending the Israelites, who were being left undefended and were being attacked. Now, all of this crossing over and deserting is very symbolic of our life before we meet Jesus, because our life is in distress. Our life, you know, the Bible says we are in debt. The Bible says that we are dead to sin. It says that sin and death reigns in us. And what I love about the story of the Bridge of Spies, this point of connection between the East and the West, from one side to the other, this point of crossing over. You know, the Bible says that Jesus, he is the way, the truth, and the life. You know what? He is our bridge of spies. He is our point between the life that we used to live, the life that we decide, you know, there is sin and death there, and I don't want that. I want to cross over. I want to cross over into the life. And the Bible says that in Jesus we've been taken from the kingdom of darkness and passed over into the kingdom of Jesus, the kingdom of his Son. So, you know, how does that happen? How do we cross over? The only way to cross over is through Jesus. The only way where we find that point of great exchange, where we leave our past life behind and we take this life that Jesus wants to give us. It's there at the cross. It's on the Bridge of Spies. That is Jesus, and it's through Jesus, and salvation is only through Jesus. So thank you ever so much for listening. I've gone over a bit, but we look forward to seeing you on Sunday at 10 o'clock in the Best Western Moat House Hotel in Lower Early. Looking forward to seeing you. May God bless you. Have a great week.